Welcome to Down the Garden Path. I'm your host, Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and plant lover. I enjoy discussing down-to-earth tips and advice to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape, and I also aim to bring you interesting and relevant topics to educate you all about the landscaping and horticultural industry. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Down the Garden Path. Today, we're talking all about September in the garden. And I want to reassure everybody about the September garden because August and this past summer have been challenging, not just with the lack of rain, but also with the consistent heat, even in the evenings. I know many people might have given up. Might have thrown in the towel or thrown in the shovel, but hang in there. September will bring hopefully some relief to the heat, some cooler temperatures in the evening, and hopefully also some rain. Although I do want to make a note for people to really take note of the plants that really did suffer in the drought, that were really hard, even if you did pay attention to them watering, because I feel like strongly that these summers are going to continue to happen. So if some plants in the garden that are just not rebounding or that are just too much work to maintain and to have them look good, especially if they're in the front yard, then we may want to consider removing them, relocating them to another area, and replacing them. And looking for some more drought-tolerant plants that you can add to your garden. So I think that's another thing to observe about, as well as what didn't do well this past summer, what did do well, what seemed to thrive, and then we can plant more of those. So that sounds like a future episode for me to talk about really tough plants. So I will plan on that. But for now, let's talk about the to-dos for your September garden. And they certainly do start with evaluating this past summer and the past July and August and see how your plants performed and where you might want to make changes. Looking for diseases, namely mildew, that kind of rears its head, end of August, beginning of September. Things like peonies, lilacs, a few other perennials. You might see some white powdery. Ninebarks can happen as well. White powdery mildew, it really does look like mildew on your leaves of some of your plants. Now the humidity, lack of circulation, if you have a lot of plants planted close together and that contributes to mildew. But some plants are just prone to it. And once they get it, they're going to keep getting it. It doesn't kill them. It just might look a little little white powdery at this time of year. You can go ahead and prune them back, cut back your peonies to the ground, or just remove those powdery, those white leaves. And same with anything else that you feel just doesn't look healthy. Go ahead and tidy those up. It doesn't mean, though, that you need to go through your garden in September and cut everything back. Absolutely not. September should be a great time in the garden where there's still lots of foliage interest, some repeat blooming perennials that might have petered out that you would have hopefully deadheaded in July and August, and that may rebloom, like salvia, phlox, that type of thing. So no putting the garden to bed in September, no cutting everything back. There is still plenty of garden season left. So hang in there. Speaking of peonies, September is also a really good time. You can do it in October and November too, but sometimes I think where to put it. So September is a really good time if you need to divide your peonies or move them. You can dig them up, sharp, clean knife if you are dividing. And when you're replanting, you want to make sure that you can still see the tubers. You do not want to plant them too deep. So when you see the tops of the root or the tops of the tuber in the plant, when you plant them, you want to plant them at that same level. So you don't want to plant them too deep. Sometimes I feel like if you wait too late in the winter, then you're not sure, or into the fall, you're not sure where to put them because it's not as obvious where they may need to go, and you may already know where you want to put them. Or if you just feel like your peony bush has gotten too big and you want to share it with someone else, then now's a good time to do that. And sometimes I also think that can be the same for hostas. Spring can be tricky because don't if you do it too late in the spring as they started coming up and you're dividing them and moving them, they sometimes can get a little leggy. So I feel like dividing them while they're nice and full and relocating them where they're nice and full and they're about to go dormant and lose their foliage anyway, and then they hit the ground running in the spring. Sometimes when we wait till the spring, we never know. It's dry, it's wet. If they grow too much, then they get leggy, like I said, or they're stunted because they don't really leaf out as well as they should because they're busy getting their roots established. No problem if you want to divide them in the fall. It works. I suggest that all the time. I've done it myself. But if there are some things you want to start rearranging in your garden, especially, if you're reconsidering plants and areas with the heat, then that might be something to think about, especially if you have hostas that have been technically growing in full sun. And yes, they do grow in full sun, but are they truly happy? Probably not. I've been in a lot of gardens this summer and, yeah, they're growing, but they are tired, they're faded, their color isn't what they should be. So that might be a plant where now you can notice some shady spots, some part sun spots, or something that's maybe the house is shading an area in the afternoon sun or under some of your trees that you may want to relocate some of your hostas from the high heat, high sun areas to someplace a little cooler so that they just show the best selves this season. So yeah, so that is some things that we can start to divide and start to think about if you're in the era of rejigging your garden. Many of you might be a brand new garden and there's nothing to move yet, and you're still trying to figure it all out, and that is fine. And I say leave it be and wait so that you can really establish after a couple of years, the size of everything, the spacing that you might have. And yeah. And then also taking pictures in September is good because it helps you remember in the spring when you're like, what is that? When does that bloom? You'll be able to tell September's a good snapshot. Like I said, some things might be repeat blooming and you'll forget about that when you see it finish blooming in July. And some things might be done and kind of all crumpled and faded. And in the spring, it looks all perky and lovely, and you forget that you did want to move it or you did want to get rid of it. So September is a great time to wander around the garden and making sure you take a few pictures of the different areas to help remind you come April, May when you're looking at what to do. Um, If you did plant any new plants this year and you're kind of worried about them and they're looking really sad, like they really haven't established, I have that situation going on. I bought a few plants and they just, with the heat and me kind of getting late, forgetting about watering them right away and planting them right away, they don't look great. The goal there and the thing to remember is that your goal is to get the roots established. So yes, soil up, the plant might not look great, might be a little crispy. You can go ahead and trim it back if you'd like, but don't throw it away. Some people do that and thinking, oh, I've killed it, it's dead. I didn't water it, I didn't plant it soon enough, it's dead. No, you can still plant it. Leave the tag there so you remember that you planted it, and cut back some of the foliage. Keep watering it this September and October. Who knows, you might get some new growth this month, and that's great. I have one that I did that midsummer and put it in a pot and then forgot in like a planter pot and forgot to water it. And so it dried out completely. So I ended up cutting it right back, added some more soil to the pot because it was didn't quite have enough, and then watered it, and it's growing and it's actually going to bloom. It was Agora. I bought two, and I put one in the garden and one I wanted to put in a container. And to be honest, the one in the container is now looking better than the one I put in the garden that just kept flowering. Even though it did get a little crispy because I wasn't great at watering either of them. So that's something to know, just to remember. And if you're buying, same goes for if you see some plants on discount this time of year, and they don't look necessarily great, as far as the greenery, the plant, I always say from the pot up type of thing, it doesn't look great. Especially a perennial, you can kind of slip it out in the store and kind of take a look. The goal is to really look at the roots. Are the roots healthy? Are they going to get established? If that's the case, then that's fine. It's a good deal, and you can plant it and water it, and it'll look great next year. The saying of in the first year they sleep, the second year they creep, and the third year they leap. So this will be their sleep year, and so it really didn't cost you much and didn't take up that much time. But if you do take a peek at the roots in the stores or in the garden benches, and you see that it's been overwatered and it smells, or it's slimy inside, or there's not a lot of soil, and the roots don't look healthy, then it's really not a good deal and it's not worth buying. So that's something to just, I know it's tempting to pick up plants on these and at the end of this quote unquote season, but sometimes it's not worth it, and you end up throwing it away in the spring, or it just doesn't come back. Yeah, so why waste your time? And this is a good time for me to mention that I know many stores, like the big box stores and some smaller garden centers, definitely start to clear out their benches. They're making way for their fall and Christmas arrangements, frighteningly enough, this time of year. So if you are looking for something specific, or you are wanting to add to a garden, it is not too late. We, as any landscape professional that you may deal with, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else in the industry, we have access to the growers, and we have access where they are growing and maintaining and irrigating and babying their plants in the fields and in their containers the whole year through, and their gardens look great. So there is still always somewhere new, fresh-looking plants available, even in September and October. So don't think that you have to put it off. I say if you can get it done in the fall, you'll be thanking yourself in the spring, because everything just goes so much faster that way. So again, if you want to add to a garden, start a new garden, and you're worried you've missed the sales, or when you've looked at the sales stuff, it doesn't look great, then contact a landscape professional that you've dealt with, another landscape designer, or myself if you are in my vicinity. I'd love to help, and we have access, like I said, to great Ontario growers. And even if you're not in Ontario, there are local growers in your area in the same boat that can provide you with plants that are healthy as can be, and that they've been looked after all season long. If you are wanting to spoil your plants a little bit and help with the moisture retention, again, if you've noticed your soil is very dry and very crumbly with the lack of rain and the heat, then we don't need more soil. You don't need to add more soil to that, but you do need to add organic material like compost, manure, a composted mulch that will start to decompose as well, is a good option. So those things will give nutrients to the plants at this time of year, especially as they head into dormancy, September, October, November, and improve the soil. And next year, they're going to help that soil retain any moisture it gets, whether it's from the rain or whether it's from you having to water it. So that is another little trick at this time of year if you're looking for something to do. Again, it's not a lot of digging. It's just top dressing your gardens with organic materials like mulch, like compost, like a composted mulch. So not the big chunks of anything or big shredded barks of anything, a composted mulch and a manure or a straight compost. organic compost. So that to me solves a lot of problems. That it helps with the moisture, it helps with nutrients for the winter, and then you hit the ground running in the spring. So there you go, some other things you can do in your September garden. Let me see what else we can do. Lawns are a big part of our September garden. They also suffered a lot this past season. Most lawns, I think, have gone dormant. So if you're worried that it is dead and that you need to replace it, don't pull the trigger on replacing your sod too quickly. It really does go to sleep with the heat of the season. And once we have cooler temperatures in the day and especially in the evening and some more moisture, we're already getting more dews, even though we haven't had a ton late August so far. We haven't had a ton of rain yet, but the cooler temperatures bring, the morning dew you see on the grass, and even that helps bring it back to life. The key, I think, in June and July especially, is really not to cut very much in July, just before it starts to get hot. Leave your grass as high as you can, higher than you want to, I know. But when everybody else is around, is cut short and has gone dormant and is like this yellow carpet in front of their lawn, you'll be happy that yours might be a little longer than you liked, but it still is going to be mostly green. So that's my tip, that we don't need a really short manicured lawn, and that it stresses it out even more with the drought. You can top seed, as we won't really need to do that for the September in the garden. I'll talk a bit more about the October in the garden as what we can do to help nourish our lawns. I think it's still a little bit early in September, and our temperatures should still be a little bit warmer. As we get into later in September, it's a good time, to consider nematodes if you're struggling with Japanese beetles. And I know people think they don't work and that it's a lot of work. It's just a tool in your toolbox. The traps, planting the right plants and not planting things that they absolutely love, planting some things that they don't like. Annual geraniums, who knew? They really don't like annual geraniums. That foliage and the leaves and the stems give off a scent that they don't like. So planting them, around your garden, or putting them in pots around some of your things that the Japanese beetles love, can be a bit of a deterrent. But nematodes are a strategy, and also helps with, not having grubs in your lawn for the critters to dig up also. But the key here is that you really, really have to water your lawn well and deeply. And so if we get a couple of good days of rain in September, those all night really good rains, and then you water it in some more, and then you water it in like for the week after you apply them. Remember, these nematodes are little swimmers. They're going to swim around in your soil and eat the larvae of the grubs. So you definitely need quite a bit of water in order to be successful. But it is a great non-chemical way in our area to help with those June bugs, maybe think, Japanese beetles, that type of thing, in our lawns and gardens. So something to think about. Again, more later on into September, and I'll probably talk a bit about it in October in the garden as well. It's still even early to start addressing lawn seed and top dressing, that type of thing. I think you want to focus on bringing the moisture back in your garden and still keeping the lawn cut high, and staying on top of the weeds, because things like crabgrass, they are produce annual seeds. So you might be pulling them out this year, but if they've got a lot of seed heads on them, those seed heads have spread already. Or if you've cut your lawn with those flowering seed heads on your weeds, then you're just spreading weeds for next year. So before you do cut your lawn, now is a good time to go and make sure you're weeding those out and and you might not get all the root. Sometimes crabgrass can be, especially when it's really dry, can really be hard to get out by the root. But if you can at least get as much as possible so that you get all those little seed heads, then that will help you next year. Consider some of the neighbors, that might, or some of the weeds that might be growing all along the curb, or where I find I have an issue with where my curb meets my asphalt around the perimeter of my front of my house. I try to pour some vinegar. I've tried a few things there. Pulling them out can be really hard because they're really in that asphalt. But I've tried vinegar. I have one of those weed burners, like those little weed torches, that we will use to kind of get rid of those weeds. Again, it's more about the seeds, so the seeds don't spread. And so keep an eye on, neighboring areas, sometimes your neighbors, and trying to get on top of those weeds so that they don't blow and give you lots more work to do next year in your garden. So yeah, and it's still time to, if you still want to plant, it's still a good time to plant, and it's still a good time to move plants around, and looking at holes or things you might want to change in your garden. So September, I find it's even easier to work in the garden. And even if you did want to divide some things and kind of move them or share with a friend, September, as long as you're not, taking out everything, September can be a fun, nicer season, a nicer month to putter in the garden in September. If you have houseplants that you've brought or tropical plants that you bring outside for the season, September is the time to start getting them cleaned up and getting them ready for coming inside. We really don't want them, once the temperatures start to cool off in the evening, below 16 degrees, that we really don't want them to be outside. So yeah, so you still have time. I don't think that's going to happen right away at the beginning of September, but we never know. But it's time to start thinking about it, start watering well, and because we want to make sure there's no insects in that soil before you take them inside. So you want to do a couple of strategies of looking for some insecticidal soap. If it's something that has a lot of leaves and a lot of little hiding places, then you might want to maybe move it to the garage and treat it a little bit with some insecticidal soap and water it well to kind of rinse out some of those insects or those eggs that may be in your soil. So don't forget about those tropical plants. And of course, you're trying to make room back in the house for them. So that's another little to do for September, is where you're going to put your tropical plant. Some tropical plants can overwinter in a cooled garage. I actually overwinter my fig trees that I put in containers, or that are in a container that I grow in containers. And I'm able to winter them in my unheated garage. And this year I'm excited to report that one of my oldest fig tree, which is I think about 4 years old, I have 11 or 12 figs on it. So they haven't ripened yet. I'm still waiting for them to ripen, and but they have done really well. My other one hasn't done as well, and in talking with Stephen Biggs about how to grow figs where you think you can't, I think I really needed to prune that fig and really prune it hard to encourage more growth, a different type of growth, and then therefore more fruit. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And the time to do that is this fall as well. So yeah. I do want you to think about, I've got some suggestions, sorry, if you have noticing that your September garden is without blooms and you want some color, you do want to buy something to add to extend your season. In the shade, I would look for Sun King Aurelia, is a yellow foliage plant perennial. It's almost shrub-like, but it is a perennial. It will die back to the ground and come back up again. And it's a really interesting chartreuse color. And even though it's called Sun King, it is a shade plant. And so it's a great way to brighten up a shady spot. Bugbane, they are tall, burgundy, white, spiky flowers that are just starting in the garden now, but the burgundy foliage has been going on all summer. And so again, shade gardens tend to be kind of green, or, so we can definitely add some color that way. Um, as far as flowering perennials, things like Japanese anemone are just coming into their own right now and will bloom right until the frost, as well as toad lilies and some native asters. I kind of encourage you, if you are someone who likes growing mums or likes adding mums to your garden, even though they can be tricky to grow, uh, I suggest you consider adding native asters instead. Insects love them. And the annual mums that you find at the big box stores and garden centers now, really have no nutritional value. No, they don't really have any benefit to insects. And I just find they will not hold up to our still warm months. They really want it to be cool. And unfortunately, the stores, in my opinion, get them. I know why they bring them in so early, because there is a lag in what they can sell and that type of thing. The summer perennials before they get to the fall mums, and then they want to go right from pumpkins to Christmas ornaments. So I realize that's why they want to bring them in, but I really say, don't bother. There's lots of other perennials you can add to your pots, or add to a summer arrangement. Maybe a couple of your perennials have died, or annuals have died in those summer arrangements. Then you can certainly pick up a perennial or two, even a hosta, and pop that into that arrangement to perk it back up for another 6 weeks or so. Butterfly bushes, or even dwarf hydrangeas. There's some that are just like little tidbit. Now is going to be about 3 feet, just under 3 feet tall. It's almost the size of a large perennial. So if you have some spots in your garden where you want to add some color and add some long season of interest, then I definitely recommend a dwarf hydrangea, paniculata hydrangea, not a macrophylla one with the big green, kind of glossy leaves like the ones we see at Easter. I definitely recommend the paniculata, like Bobo, Firelight Tidbit, or Little Lime Punch are some of the new. Those two are new. This year I added them to my garden, and I definitely recommend and feel like there's always a spot in a garden for a new small dwarf hydrangea. And they start blooming in June, and they're going to bloom right until the frost comes and snow comes, actually. And they require very little maintenance, especially the small ones. So there you have it. Your garden's going to need a bit of love after this tough season, and the tough season is going to continue. So start thinking about strategies and things that you might want to do in order to, avoid any damage or any disappointments you had this year. The other thing I do want to remind everybody is evergreens. Even if you have large evergreens or small evergreens, they need water, and they don't show it like our perennials do, and some of our flowering shrubs do. They will show it after the fact. So if you have a large evergreen on your property or cedar hedges, you really want to water them well going into winter. They do need that moisture in their roots in order to stay green all season. Every spring, we're going to have pictures of, people showing pictures of their dead evergreen going, "What happened? It looked so good last year." And really, it is from a lack of moisture and a lack of water getting them through, throughout the season to get them through that winter. That with that dry, cold, they really need more moisture than you think they need to get through that. And in some cases, we can mitigate it with wrapping them with burlap or doing a windscreen. But really, the reason we put evergreens, I like to think, in the garden is because we want to see green. We don't want to see burlap. So I think just remembering that, and giving your, whether it's a soaker hose, whether it's, I've talked about my recommended, little round sprinkler. putting it on low for 20 minutes a couple times a week, and really getting a deep watering for your garden and for your evergreens. So I hope these tips help. If you have other questions, and if I've missed something that you wanted to learn more about, then please reach out and let me know. Of course, I itemize all of these suggestions and tips for September gardening in my book, Down the Garden Path, a step-by-step guide to your Ontario garden. I've covered everything in that chapter. And yeah, I want to thank everybody for listening, and I hope I have given you some information that will really help you in your garden this September. Bye for now.